The thing about love advice is that it always sounds easier than living it. And the cruel twist? The person giving me all the answers was the one I should have been falling for all along. It was late September in New York, and the city was buzzing with its usual cocktail of ambition and exhaustion. I had been working at the advertising firm for almost 3 years, and though I had survived the endless client meetings, the merciless deadlines, and the passive-aggressive emails, my personal life was a complete mess. Men floated in and out of my orbit like brief, unsatisfying seasons. And every time I got burned, every time I found myself staring at my phone wondering why I hadn't heard back, I ended up in the same place, her desk. Her name was Clara Weston. Sharp-tongued, brilliant, ridiculously composed even under fire. She had a knack for making even the most catastrophic situations seem manageable, like when our biggest client almost dropped us last year, and she talked them back with nothing but wit and icy calm. Everyone in the office admired her, feared her a little. But to me, she was something else, me confidant, my accidental therapist, my self-proclaimed love advisor. I can still remember the first time I leaned against her desk with tear-smeared mascara and whispered, "He ghosted me." Clara didn't flinch. She glanced up from her screen, pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose and said flatly, "Then he's a coward. And you deserve someone who isn't afraid of you." That was Clara. Brutal honesty wrapped in elegance. And God help me, I kept going back for more. For months, maybe years, it became our ritual. I'd stumble into her office after another failed date, another romantic disaster, and she would play the part of my strategist, decoding texts, rewriting messages, advising me when to hold back or when to cut ties. She was my anchor in a sea of chaos, and I didn't notice the danger of it. Not until the night everything shifted. It was a Thursday evening, long after most of the office had gone home. I was still stuck revising a campaign draft when Clara appeared at my cubicle holding 2 takeout boxes. "You didn't eat," she said simply, placing one in front of me. I blinked at her. "How do you always know?" She smirked. "Because you're predictable, Taylor. Work, starve, complain, repeat." I laughed, the sound sharper than I meant it to be. "Wow, thanks." "You're welcome," she replied dryly, but her eyes softened in a way that made my chest tighten. We ate in silence, the glow of computer screens painting the room in pale blue light. I caught myself watching her more than once, the way she tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, the faint smile curving her lips when she read something on her phone. There was a gentleness to her when she wasn't performing her usual cool, untouchable act. And for the first time, I wondered what it would feel like if all her advice wasn't about men. That night, when she walked me out to the elevator, Clara pressed the button and stood beside me. Too close. Close enough that I felt her shoulder brush mine. And then without warning she said, "Taylor, maybe you're asking the wrong people for love." The words lingered long after I got home. For days. For weeks. Clara had always been the safe one, the one who never blurred lines, never invited questions. But the more I replayed her comment, the more dangerous it felt. And then came the night of the office party. The rooftop was lit with strings of golden lights, music spilling out into the autumn air. I was wearing a crimson dress I probably shouldn't have bought, the kind that clung to me like a secret. And Clara, in her tailored black suit, looked devastating. She had this effortless command of space, this way of making the air bend toward her. At some point, after too many glasses of champagne, I found myself standing alone with her at the edge of the rooftop, the city sprawling beneath us. "You look good," she said, and her voice was low enough to make my skin prickle. "You don't look so bad yourself," I shot back, trying to sound casual. Her lips curved. "Careful." That almost sounded like flirting. I laughed, but it came out nervous. What if it was? For a moment, she just studied Metho's sharp green eyes, searching for something I wasn't sure I was ready to give. Then she leaned in just slightly, her breath warm against my ear. "Then I tell you I don't do half measures." The world tilted. My heart raced in my chest, pounding with the weight of something I couldn't ignore anymore. For the first time, I realized that maybe all those late nights, all those conversations, all that advocacy wasn't just friendship. It had never been just friendship. But here's the cruel part of love. Realization doesn't always come with timing. Because that night I didn't kiss her. I didn't say the words clawing at my throat. Instead, I smiled like a coward, excused myself, and went home with my secret burning inside me. The days after were torture. Clara went back to being her usual composed, untouchable self, and I tried to bury what I felt. But burying only works when the ground doesn't shift beneath you. And mine did every time she smiled at me, every time she brushed past me in the hall, every time her hand accidentally touched mine when she passed me a file. And then there was the breaking point. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I had been crying in the bathroom after yet another failed attempt at dating, this time with a guy who made me feel invisible. When I came out, Clara was waiting by the sink, arms crossed. "Taylor," she said softly, "why do you keep doing this to yourself?" I wiped my cheeks, embarrassed. "Because maybe someday I'll find the right guy." Her expression hardened, but her voice was steady. "Or maybe you're not supposed to be looking for a guy at all." Silence crashed between us. I froze, staring at her, the words sinking deep into my bones. And before I could stop myself, I whispered, "What if you're right?" Clara didn't answer me right away. She just stood there in the fluorescent-lit bathroom, her blazer hanging perfectly on her shoulders, her eyes burning with something I couldn't read. For once, she wasn't the poised strategist or the unshakable advisor. She looked raw, almost fragile. "You don't know what you're saying," she finally whispered. But her voice cracked in a way that betrayed her. I swallowed hard. "I do know. I think I've always known." My reflection in the mirror looked terrified. My makeup was smudged, my hair damp from the rain outside. And yet I had never felt more stripped bare in my life. Clara's hand twitched like she wanted to reach out, but she pulled it back at the last second, clenching her fists instead. "You're just confused," she said, her tone sharper now, as if building walls back up brick by brick. "You've been hurt too many times by men, and now you're projecting, Clara." I cut her off, my voice trembling but steady enough to slice through the air. "Stop trying to rationalize everything. For once, just feel it." Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment I thought she'd break. That she'd admit it, that she'd let the weight of whatever we'd been building finally crash down. But instead she turned away, pushing open the bathroom door so hard it smacked against the wall. "Go home, Taylor," she muttered. "Get some sleep." And then she was gone. I couldn't sleep that night. The city's rain hammered against my window, and every drop sounded like a memory of her voice. I lay awake replaying every smile, every late-night conversation, every time she'd brushed her fingers against mine without meaning to, or maybe meaning to all along. I hated her for walking away. I hated myself more for letting her. By morning, the fragile courage I'd scraped together was gone, replaced with a hollow ache that sat in my chest like lead. I told myself I'd keep it professional, pretend it never happened, go back to being coworkers, friends, advisor, and advisee. But Clara had other plans. The next few days were hell. She avoided me with surgical precision. In meetings, she directed questions to everyone but me. In the break room, if I walked in, she walked out. She was an expert at disappearing without ever leaving the room, and it tore me apart. Finally, by the end of the week, I snapped. I cornered her in her office, shutting the door behind me with more force than I intended. She didn't even look up from her computer. "Busy," she said curtly. "Cut the crap, Clara." I shot back. "You've been dodging me like I'm contagious, and I'm done pretending I don't notice." Her fingers froze on the keyboard. Slowly, she raised her eyes to mine, and there it was, the storm she was trying so hard to hide. "Taylor," she said quietly, whatever you think this is, it can't happen." I laughed bitterly. "Why? Because it's messy? Because it doesn't fit into your perfect little blueprint for life?" Her jaw clenched. "Because you'll regret it." The words sliced through me like glass. I wanted to scream at her, demand she stop deciding my feelings for me. Instead, my voice broke into something softer, more wounded. "Don't you get it?" I whispered. "The only thing I regret is not realizing sooner that it's you." For the first time since I'd known her, Clara looked undone. Her carefully constructed armor cracked, and I saw the fear underneath. Not fear of me, but fear of what it meant. She stood up suddenly, moving around the desk like she needed distance, like being too close to me would set her on fire. "This job, this office, me whole damn life, it's not built for this," she said, her voice shaking. "I can't be reckless. Not with you." My chest tightened. "So what am I? A liability?" Her eyes flinched as if I'd struck her. She didn't answer. And in that silence, I felt something collapse inside me. The following weeks blurred into a slow-motion nightmare. I threw myself into work trying to drown out the ache. I went out on dates again, letting men buy me drinks I didn't want and laugh at jokes that didn't land. But every time, Clara's face hovered in the back of my mind like a ghost. Every text I sent, every smile I faked, I could hear her voice reminding me I deserved more. And the cruel irony? The more I tried to move on, the more I realized there was no more beyond her. Meanwhile, Clara acted as though nothing had happened. To anyone else, she was the same brilliant strategist, the same commanding presence in the office. But when our eyes met across a conference table, when her hand brushed mine accidentally passing a file, the air buzzed with all the unsaid things we were both too afraid to voice. It was torture. The breaking point came on the night of the annual client gala. The ballroom was all glittering chandeliers and champagne flutes, women in satin gowns and men in sharp tuxedos. I wore black that night, a dress Clara had once offhandedly told me suited me better than red. Maybe I wanted to prove I wasn't still listening to her. Maybe I wanted to prove the opposite. But when I walked in and saw her, Clara in a midnight blue gown, her hair swept elegantly to one side, emerald earrings catching the light. She didn't look like my advisor. She didn't look like my coworker. She looked like the woman I'd been aching for, the one I couldn't have. And then it got worse. Halfway through the night, I saw her laughing with another woman, a client tall and stunning, hand resting far too comfortably on Clara's arm. They leaned in close, whispering, smiling like the room didn't exist. Jealousy hit me like a punch to the gut. I downed my champagne, grabbed another, and forced a laugh with the nearest group of people I could find. But every time I glanced back at Clara, every time I saw that client's hand linger on her, my chest burned hotter. Eventually, Clara noticed me. Our eyes locked across the room. Her smile faltered. She excused herself from the woman and started toward me. I panicked. I grabbed the first guy nearby, a junior partner I barely knew, and let him pull me onto the dance floor. Taylor. Clara's voice called behind me, but I didn't turn. I let the man spin me clumsily under the chandelier lights, forcing myself to laugh, forcing myself to look like I was moving on. But then mid-spin I caught sight of Clara again, her face pale, her jaw set, her green eyes flashing like lightning. It was the first time I realized Clara Weston could look furious. And it was the first time I realized she wasn't furious at me. She was furious at herself. The gala ended in chaos for me. I left early, heels in hand, storming through the rain-slick streets of Manhattan with tears streaking down my face. I hated myself for playing games, hated her for making me feel like a game in the first place. When I reached my apartment, soaked and trembling, Clara was already there. She stood outside my door, dress drenched from the same rain, hair clinging to her face. She looked nothing like the composed woman I knew. She looked desperate. "Taylor," she said, her voice raw, "we need to talk." I froze, keys trembling in my hand. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to unleash every ounce of hurt I'd swallowed these past weeks. But the bigger part, the part that was still hopelessly in love with her, just wanted to hear her out. So I unlocked the door, let her in, and braced myself for whatever storm was about to come. The apartment was silent except for the dripping of rain from our clothes onto the hardwood floor. Clara stood just inside the doorway, trembling slightly, though I couldn't tell if it was from the cold or from whatever words she was holding back. "You shouldn't be here," I muttered, tossing my wet heels onto the mat. "Not after tonight." Her jaw tightened. "I couldn't let you walk away like that." I laughed bitterly, dragging my hands through my soaked hair. "Walk away? Clara, I've been standing still for weeks, waiting for you to meet me halfway. But you just keep retreating." She flinched as if I'd slapped her. "You think this is easy for me?" "Easy?" My voice rose, shaking. "It's hell. Watching you smile at other women, pretending like none of this means anything to you, while I'm drowning in it." Her lips parted, and for a long moment she just stared at me, chest rising and falling as though she were running out of air. Then finally the walls came down. "It does mean something," she whispered. "It means everything. And that's the problem." My heart lurched. Then why keep pushing me away? She closed her eyes, leaning against the wall as if her strength had finally given out. When she spoke again, her voice was fractured. "Because, Taylor, if I let myself have you, I don't know how to stop. I don't do casual. I don't do halfway. And I'm terrified that one day you'll wake up, realize this was all a mistake, and I'll be left with nothing. The words hit me harder than any rejection could have. For the first time, I saw her not as the untouchable strategist, not as the flawless advisor, but as a woman terrified of losing control, terrified of being left behind. I stepped closer, slow enough to give her space, but firm enough that she couldn't mistake my intent. Clara, don't you get it? You already have me. I don't want halfway either. Her eyes flicked open, and in them I saw every battle she'd been fighting against herself. She shook her head, almost pleading. You think you know what you want now, but no. I cut her off, my voice steadier than it had ever been. I've spent years chasing the wrong people, listening to you tell me I deserved better. And now I finally see it. The better I deserved was you. The silence that followed was deafening. For a second I thought she'd push me away again, retreat into the safety of logic and excuses. But then slowly she moved toward me. Her hand rose hesitantly, fingers brushing my cheek, tentative like she expected me to pull away. When I didn't, when I leaned into her touch instead, her breath caught. Taylor, she whispered, my name breaking in her throat. That was all it took. I closed the space between us, pressing my lips to hers with all the pent-up desperation of months, maybe years. She gasped softly, then melted against me, her hands tangling in my wet hair, pulling me closer like she'd been starving for this too. The kiss was messy, frantic, soaked with rain and tears, but it was real. More real than anything I'd ever known. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, she rested her forehead against mine. God, what are we doing? Finally, I panted. The right thing. The next few days blurred into something surreal. We didn't label it. We didn't tell anyone. But everything had shifted. Coffee breaks turned into stolen touches under the table. Late nights at the office ended with her hand brushing mine, lingering just a little too long. And when no one was watching, when the world finally gave us a sliver of privacy, she kissed me like she couldn't believe I was real. But of course, reality always finds a way to catch up. It happened 2 weeks later. We were working late on a pitch for a massive client. Papers scattered across her desk, empty coffee cups piling high. I was leaning over her chair, pointing out edits when I realized just how close we were. Her hair brushed against my chin, her perfume wrapping around me like a spell. Before I could stop myself, I bent down and kissed her cheek. She froze. The pen slipped from her fingers. Slowly, she turned her head until our eyes met. For a heartbeat, it was just us, no office, no clients, no rules. Then the door opened. One of our colleagues stepped in, freezing mid-sentence as they caught sight of how close we were. Their eyes widened, then quickly darted away. Usury. I didn't mean to interrupt. The door closed again before either of us could respond. Panic flickered across Clara's face. She pushed her chair back, putting space between us like the contact burned her. This is bad, she muttered, pacing the room. If anyone suspects, if this gets out. Clara, stop. I grabbed her hand, forcing her to look at me. So what if they know? We're not doing anything wrong. Her eyes flashed. You don't understand. This office, this industry, people talk. They'll twist it, they'll use it against us. Against you. And what about us? My voice cracked. Are we just supposed to pretend this doesn't exist? That I don't. I stopped myself before the words slipped out too soon, but they hung heavy between us anyway. She shook her head, pulling her hand from mine. We have to be careful. Promise me, Taylor. No more slips. Her tone was sharp, commanding, but her eyes betrayed her. They begged me not to make her choose between me and the life she'd built. I nodded slowly, though every part of me screamed against it. Fine. We'll be careful. But inside I couldn't shake the fear. How much longer could we live in the shadows before one of us broke? The breaking point came faster than I expected. It was a Friday night, another endless round of drinks after work with the team. Everyone was loose, laughing, tipsy. I tried to keep my distance from Clara, but it was impossible not to feel her eyes on me across the bar. At some point, a guy from finance slid into the booth beside me, grinning like he'd already decided I was his prize for the night. He leaned in too close, his hand brushing my thigh in a way that made my stomach churn. I glanced at Clara, silently begging her to save me. But she just sat there, rigid, jaw tight, her glass clutched too hard in her hand. She didn't move. Didn't say a word. Something inside me snapped. I shoved the guy's hand away and stood abruptly. "I'm leaving," I muttered, grabbing my coat. Clara was on her feet instantly, following me out into the cool night air. "Taylor, wait." "No." I spun around, fury and heartbreak spilling out at once. "You don't get to play savior only when it's convenient for you. You don't get to hide behind fear, and then watch me suffer just to protect your image." Her face paled. "It's not about my image." "Then what is it about?" My voice cracked. "Because I can't keep living like this, loving you in the dark, while you act like we're strangers in the light." The words hung between us, heavy and raw. Clara's lips parted, but no sound came out. She looked at me like I had ripped her chest open. And maybe I had. That night I went home alone. I cried until my pillow was soaked, until my throat burned, until my body was too exhausted to hurt anymore. I told myself maybe it was over. Maybe whatever fragile thing we had was never meant to survive outside stolen moments and whispered touches. But deep down I knew I wasn't ready to let go. And judging by the look on Clara's face as I walked away, neither was she. The weekend dragged by in silence. I didn't hear from Clara, not a text, not a call. I told myself it was over, that I had to move on. I cleaned my apartment, tried cooking for one, even opened a dating app again. But nothing filled the void. Every face blurred into insignificance because none of them were her. By Sunday night I was staring at my phone, fighting the urge to dial her number. My chest ached with the memory of her lips, her touch, the way she had said my name like it was both a warning and a prayer. And then just past midnight there was a knock at my door. I froze, heart hammering. When I opened it, Clara stood there, disheveled, eyes red, like she hadn't slept in days. She didn't wait for an invitation. She just walked in, pacing the living room like a storm trapped in human form. "Taylor," she started, then stopped, shaking her head. "God, I don't even know where to begin." "Try the truth," I whispered. Her eyes snapped to mine, green and fierce and broken all at once. "The truth is, I'm terrified. Terrified of wanting you this much. Terrified of how badly I could ruin us. But most of all, terrified that I already have." I swallowed hard. "You didn't ruin us, Clara. You ruined me, maybe. But us? That's still here if you just stop running." She took a step closer, then another, until she was right in front of me. "I don't know how to love halfway," she admitted, voice trembling. "If I let myself fall, it's going to be all of me. And if you decide one day that you don't want this anymore, then I'll still be here," I interrupted, tears burning my eyes. "Because I don't want anyone else. I've tried. God, I've tried. But it's you. It's always been you." For a heartbeat the world held still. Then Clara cupped my face in her hands and kissed me with a desperation that tasted like surrender. This time there was no pulling back. No hesitation. We stumbled toward the couch, laughing through tears, kissing like we'd been holding our breath for years. She whispered my name against my lips, over and over, like it was the only thing tethering her to the world. And for the first time I didn't feel like I was chasing someone unreachable. I felt like I was home. The weeks that followed were nothing short of chaos, beautiful, terrifying chaos. We didn't tell the office at first. We navigated secret smiles, coded messages, the thrill of stolen moments. But there was no denying the change. People noticed the way I glowed, the way Clara seemed lighter, freer. Gossip started, as it always does. One morning our boss called us both into his office. My stomach dropped, bracing for disaster. But instead he just arched a brow and said, "As long as it doesn't interfere with the work, I don't care who you spend your nights with." Clara blinked, stunned. I nearly laughed from relief. When we left the office, Clara squeezed my hand, her lips quirking into the softest, most genuine smile I had ever seen on her. For once, she didn't look like the unshakable strategist. She looked like a woman in love. Of course, it wasn't all perfect. There were fights, small ones about schedules, big ones about fears. I learned quickly that Clara's instinct was always to retreat when things got too hard, and she learned that mine was to chase until I burned myself out. But slowly we built something better. Something real. One night, months later, we were curled up on her couch, the city lights spilling through the window. She was reading, her glasses slipping down her nose, while I traced idle patterns on her arm. "Do you ever think about how we got here?" I asked softly. She looked up, brow raised. You mean from me fixing your dating disasters to this? I laughed. Exactly. She closed her book, leaning down to kiss me gently. Sometimes I think I always knew, she admitted, that every piece of advice I gave you was just me trying to push you toward the person you deserved without realizing it was me. My chest tightened, full of something so big it almost hurt. Well, then you were right about one thing. Oh. I smiled, brushing my lips against hers. I did deserve better. And I finally got it. Her eyes softened, and for once there was no fear in them. Just love. Pure, unguarded love. The cruel thing about love advice is that it always sounds easier than living it. But the beautiful thing? When you finally stop listening to everyone else and start listening to your own heart, you find the kind of love worth fighting for. And mine was Clara Weston. Always. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.